Good morning. This is Harold Smith. I'm with the Sheldon Historical Society in Sheldon here on in this rather coolish day in September 2020 for the purposes of having a conversation with
Phil Lovelette.
Phil Lovelette, who has been a Sheldon resident native since pretty much the day he was born.
Yeah.
So, Phil, what year was that?
Well, I was born in '53, but we didn't move here until I was in the second or third grade, I believe it was.
Okay.
So we can do a little math, and I would say, let's call it even 1960. 1960, okay.
So you went to school here?
I did. I went to school in Sheldon Springs.
In Sheldon Springs.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. It was four-room school.
Mm-hmm.
School.
That was the one that the train went right in front of.
I did, yeah, right down, it was by Joe's Country Store was right there. I think that building is gone now.
Yes, it is.
And I grew up on High Street in Sheldon Springs.
Okay.
Better known as the last row of brown houses as you leave the town. I grew up on the third house there, in the third house there, and there was 28 kids in the street.
In the school?
What's that?
On the street?
On the street.
On the street.
28 kids in 6 homes, 6 houses there.
Mm-hmm.
I was the oldest.
The leader of the gang.
Yeah, leader of the whole tribe, I guess you could call it that. But it was a very interesting childhood. It makes me think sometimes.
One of those people I know was Bob Morris.
Yeah, there was the families that lived there. I could go through every one of them, but if society today was lived like that, we took care of each other. We knew each other really well. You know, Fern lived across the street, across 105 there, but that whole set of houses right there, nobody lacked.
So you played ball together?
We played ball together, we did everything together. And if
Fishing
someone was
together?
hurt, the other families took care, you know, if they were hurt and they couldn't work, took care of them. And there's probably a million streets out there like that in the US, but I grew up on that one.
You grew up on that one.
And you know, we lived, all the people who lived there worked at the mill, the paper mill. And they shopped at Joe's Country Store, and they played cards on Friday nights, and if they could afford it, they'd have a few bottles of beer with it, and adults would, and the kids would play till dark, and you know, the whole community. And I'm sure it was like that on Mill Street, Borden House Street, in that town as well, and in Sheldon Creek, as we used to call it. We used to say we'd go to the creek. This was the creek, we called it.
He was growing up in the 50s and 60s.
Yes.
Yeah, really was.
Yes, and the families on that street, you're still in contact with them today. You know, the parents and the grandparents, of course, are deceased, but, and there's a bond. Bob Morris, of course, he lived on the last house on the street. And when he was Franklin County Sheriff and stuff, he would stop by on his patrol after his patrol, knock on the door and come in and have a cup of coffee with us. It might be, 9, 10 o'clock at night or something, but he'd want a cup of coffee, and we'd sit there and we'd visit. And of course, we had to go to work the next morning, and he'd stay sometimes a little late, but we really enjoyed it, you know. And my mom, when she was alive, Bob would stop and see her, visit, and she was, you know, even when she was in the place across from the BFA there, the elderly housing, he'd stop and visit with her there. And a lot of those kids continue to do that today. It makes me feel kind of different sometimes, because I get treated like my father used to. So, you know, It's
Well,
just
I'm going to assume that means you're treated with respect.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. However, you know, not to go someplace we might not want to go. I've talked to some of the boys of High Street,
Yeah.
and there was a few mischievous things that used to happen there.
Yeah, but we didn't walk around with halos on our heads. Okay? I remember my father telling me one time, Bob's sister lived at the end of the street down there, of course, and she was a fairly good-looking girl. And we were out of the 8th grade going to BFA St. Albans to school. And my father used to say, I don't know why you need to go to St. Albans to see these girls down there. You have one at the end of the street just as pretty as any of them. And my brother Tim and I told him many times she's a sister. So, you know, she's like a sister dad. She's not. So that's how that whole thing went on. And then I remember doing things, you probably would go to jail today maybe. I don't know. One time, Halloween time, a bunch of us guys decided to roll Congress Hall Hill, they called it, the Mill Hill. It goes down to used to have these barrels out there for sand, for ice, to get. Well, we decided in October to roll one of them down the hill when there was a vehicle coming down the other side. Well, that vehicle went into the mill yard, and the barrel missed the car. And unbeknown to us, there was a car coming the other way, and now we were pinned. And the fellow that caught us doing that, it was 4 of us, they didn't bring us to jail, but they brought us back to our parents by the ear. Yeah, so we paid for that dearly, the 4 guys on that street did that. And I won't tell you who the other 3 were, they'll just leave it at that. I was one of them. And then other times we did things, you know, we did good things as well, but one night we had this brainstorm to tip over the dugouts at the Little League field. How the hell we decided to do that, I don't know where that came from, but we tipped them over and we got caught again, and ironically, we were up there the next day fixing them because our parents were the ones that built them, with the help of the mill. The mill used to. So that, I can tell you, was not a very pleasant day up there, or a week or 2. So, like I said, we didn't have halos over our heads, but we did know respect. And if we didn't know respect, we got taught respect.
Real quick.
Yeah, real quick.
So
down the road from there, back then there was the Golden Farm, which was on the sharp corner below High Street there, leaving towards St. Albans. And then in the village up above by Joe's Country Store was Adler Macy had a farm there.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me laugh to think about those days when Adler would come with his pickup truck on the street because he had hay to haul. And we'd jump in the back of the truck, he'd take us up, pay us 50 cents an hour to help him haul and get his hay in. And you watch old movies and stuff, you see, the immigrants and stuff getting into trucks and going off to work. And you think about it, you say, geez, we did the same thing as kids. You drive on the street, I need 4 kids today, I gotta have 4 people to haul hay, and then Golden's down there at the farm, shuck oats, do whatever they needed. They'd come and drive up on the tractor and wagon across the field and say, I need you guys for a couple days, and we'd go down there and work, 50 cents an hour, or I don't know if it even was that much, I can't remember.
Probably not.
No. But it was some money anyways, we got paid for it. It just, and of course that's all gone today, none of that's there. I drive by there sometimes and I stop, I look at it and say, what happened? Over time, what happened? And development, I guess, and moving up, but it just seems that it was a quaint little village to live in. You had the main mill store, the post office was right there, the school was right here. Everybody worked at the paper mill that lived there. The Catholic Church was here, and
The train was still running?
Yeah.
Train was still
It was
running.
still running, yeah, the railroad station there, depot, I guess you call it. I never saw any people get on that train here, but I saw them, pallets of stuff they load there. That was right across from Joe's Country Store, right there.
Right. Yeah.
I know we used to walk those tracks. We went one time and we were supposed to be fishing. We walked the tracks, but we went the other direction. Went over on by the mill, the back of the mill. Decided to go down and fish under the dam. Well, you got to crawl down that ladder on the old dam. Crawl down the ladder and get underneath the water and fish down there. We didn't ask if it was all right. We just thought we'd go and do it. Well, that was another day that I think, if I could say it politely, I would say we knew that day what a size 10 shoe felt. But, again, that community was and I'm sure it still is, maybe, I know I don't live there anymore, but I have a hard time believing, it's sad that it's that close. It might be, I hate to say
No,
it.
trust me, it's not. I lived there. It's not.
Yeah, it's totally different back then. If you had a garden, you had plenty of, you took care of yourself, and then you made sure that people on the street had what they had. If something didn't grow right in your garden, your mom would say, hey, take this bag down to Betty and Wayne, and take this over to Ron and Joyce Bishop were there. And, I can go through all the people that lived there. And they did the same thing in return. You just, you think about it, you didn't have a lot, but you had a lot, if you know what I mean. You had a lot. You didn't have fancy cars and Ford vehicles and, $450,000, $500,000 homes to live in. You lived in a mill house that your father's pay got deducted out of his pay every week to pay to live there. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it might have been. I think it was $4 a week or something, included your power. And then when they sold them all, my father bought that house and lived in it for a while. And then he ended up selling it. But those houses, I remember tearing into those houses, all rough cut lumber, lath, and you tear it in and redo it all. And they weren't going to fall down, those houses, that's for sure.
Most of them are still there. Even the ones on School Street are still.
Yes. I delivered papers, Burlington Free Press in that town, until I went to high school. So maybe 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 3 years, 4 years. I actually won a trip to New York City, the World's Fair.
Good.
Because I sold so many copies. I got selected to go to the World's Fair. And I delivered papers up and down Sheldon Springs, and even Bill McFeeters was I guess you'd call him the president of the mill back then. And I went and talked to him. I was 12, I think 12 or 13, about delivering to the guys in the mill, and he let me take my paper bag to go down and deliver papers through the mill, down through the machines and the back. And I picked up 30 customers or something down in there. When he let me go, he said, well, you go, stay away from the machines and don't go bother to help me. So I was 12 years old. I was walking around in big paper machines down there, selling newspaper to these guys. So that's a change of things. We certainly wouldn't do that today. You wouldn't allow you to go in there and do that.
They were still doing pulp at the time?
They were, yes.
Big pulp pile out front, a log pile?
Yeah, all pulp. We used to go up to the top of the hill there at Mill Street. And I don't know if you remember where Bob Gale lived. The big house as you turned across the Catholic Church was Mill Street. Right on the hill there was a big home there. And of course, those homes, rightfully so, were associated with people by the pecking order of where they were in the mill.
Right.
Okay, which is fine. Nobody ever had a problem with it. If you were a tower boss, you got to live in a little bigger home if you wanted, and so on and so forth. Well, we used to go up to Bob Gale's house and we'd look the street, make sure none of the trucks were coming. And we'd get a toboggan, we'd slide down across the road, between the houses on Mill Street, down the hill in the back, and down through the pulp piles. Until they caught us doing it again. Because we're going right across the yard down there where the trucks are coming in and out, and somebody would holler and we'd dump off the toboggan and it would go ass over pan box rolling down through the hill there. So,
It sounds all too familiar.
yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes you don't even sit and you think about it, you kind of chuckle, but then you think about it, God, it was nice, it was good. And the people there, like any, I think, community, the people, you guys mentioned it earlier, I believe, the people make the community. You know, when you went to church on Sunday, you knew everybody was in church, and you knew who they were at, and you knew that so-and-so was getting married in a month, and well, so-and-so, they've separated, you know, and back then, I say back then, it was, you know, it wasn't 100 years ago, but divorces were hush-hush. They didn't talk about separations too much. And if they did, it was all hush-hush away from the children. They didn't want, you know, so. But you go to church there, I remember the priest even that were there. Father Provost was there. You know, just for long, I was a knight of the altar there, so I worked as an altar boy. They called it the Knight of the Altars, the society was. Then you had their own Boy Scout troop, and I think Emery Bethillier, yes, he was the leader of the Boy Scouts. We used to have it in the auditorium at the school that I went to there. And we'd have all the stuff there, and it used to be, if you leave town and go up where the pulp yards were, not the folding ones, but the actual pulp logs they dumped at the top. And went outside, across that bridge, up on the left. Of course, that farm on that sharp corner used to be the mill farm years ago.
It's where the Gordons had their...
Yes, that's right. And they let them take that chunk of land up there. You'd go up on the top, and it was a Boy Scout facility to camp out and work on different merit badges and all that stuff. So that was all... To me, when I think back, that was really cool. That was a nice spot. I'm sure today it's just woods, but back then, you know, it was cleared out. We had tents in there, we had fire pits. And, then we used to take trips. We'd go up by the old poor farm and go across the cut there and come out into Fairfield Pond.
Right.
And we had campsites all the way up through there, that Boy Scout troop. You know, they had a lot of stuff for a little town going there. A lot of things. Of course, when they split the schools up, some went here and some went there. And it didn't hurt anything really, other than the expense of busing, because we used to walk to school. Then you had to have busing come in to bus kids up here. And, you know, certain grade. I forgot now. I believe maybe K through 4 or 1 through 4 was up here, and the rest were down there at that time. And
so did you go to high school here or BFA?
I went to high school at BFA. We could have gone to Missisquoi. Well, no, Missisquoi didn't. The first graduating class was 71 at Missisquoi, so we graduated in 71. So we couldn't go to Missisquoi, we could go to Enosburg or BFA. And I chose to go to BFA, and that's where I met my lovely wife 49 years ago.
You made a good choice then.
I did.
Okay.
There's been times I've wondered.
He couldn't run fast enough, Sam, to be with Munker.
Yeah, so.
So you graduated from BFA.
Yeah.
And then what?
I got married right out of high school.
Okay.
18 years old.
That's good.
49 years ago.
49 years ago. And did she put you to work someplace, or
I
did you
worked,
just stay home?
No, I worked. We moved to Richford, and I worked at Larson Industries,
Yeah.
The hockey stick factory. And then I left there after a year or so, was it, and went to work for Blue Seal Feeds. And I worked for Blue Seal Feeds till 78. I took a job at IBM as an operator there. And I took a cut and pay to travel 112 miles a day to go to work. So things were a little funky, let's say, for a few months there until we got adjusted, but it paid off. I spent 30 years there, and I ended up working in an electrical engineering group, and went back to school, and a bunch of that stuff. And I left there in 2007 with 30 years, and so I really retired April 1st, 2008. 55 years old and 30 years.
That's not too bad.
No, it was good to me, that place, and I was good to it, so we got along very well. When I started there in 78, we were talking 50 cents an hour a while ago. I started there for $4 an hour in 78. $4 an hour plus travel.
Right.
So we had a lot of stuff going on. Big gardens, we raised our own animals, her and I.
You living in Richford at the time, or here? You were living in Richford?
Yeah, I lived in Richford from 71 to 80. Then we moved to Enosburg.
Then you moved to Enosburg.
Yeah, then we built a house in Enosburg.
You're living in Enosburg now?
I am, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we've been there since 1980.
But we see you around here all the time, so you must come and go from Sheldon on a regular
I
basis. Right.
I don't know the people that live on High Street, except the Jacksons are there still, I guess. The rest are all new people there, but I know Mike Jackson, I think, owns the last two now. Mary lives in one of them, Fern, I think.
I don't think she's staying there.
No? Well, I know Michael, the youngest Jackson boy, they lived there, he grew up there, that he owned, he works, I think, at Mile.
So the spring school is gone, but you spent a lot of time in there, so you're pretty intimate with that building. And it's
Pardon me?
the spring school. You spent a lot of time in there.
Yes, I did. Yes, I went to Mrs. McFeeters was the principal.
Okay. Are we sure we don't have him on one of those school pictures we got? I got one of her classes.
Oh, you do? Well, I was there, I think, I'm going to say at least 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So Mrs. McFeeters was the principal, and she taught as well. She had 3rd and 4th grade, and she was principal of the school. There was 4 teachers. She was one of them, and then, of course, 5th and 6th were together, 7th and 8th.
Right.
Their wisdom, and God bless them, they did something in my 7th and 8th grade that if you went in that school, I'm sure you remember, you go up the stairs.
I don't remember a thing about it. Tell me.
You go up the stairs, the classrooms were on that floor, and then up another stairs was an auditorium like above. But there was 4 classrooms, and then there was a swinging door with glass, half wall with glass on it, to go to the next 2 classrooms. So the 7th and 8th went to school over there, and because you were getting ready to go to high school or have to exchange rooms, they put a room up off the auditorium, and you would have a class in with Mrs. Mullen, let's say, in this classroom. The next class would be over here with Mr. Stokes. Then you'd go back to Mrs. Mullen, and up to, so you get used to transferring the rooms. Which then, we did it, we didn't think anything about it, but as I got older, I said, it's pretty clever of them to do that, because when we went to school, it was normal for us to change classrooms.
You needed the training of how to make it in 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And they tell you, you only got so many, and they started doing that as a 7th grader in 8th grade. And you went to high school, and it was a little bigger, you had 3 stories, but it was the same concept. And those people, that was pretty clever of them to do that, I always thought. It's, in the classrooms, that's the other thing, when you went to school there, we're full of mill people. Right? They're all kids from the mill, their fathers worked at the mill.
Yeah.
And some farmers, outside farmers come in.
Kids from the poor farm went there.
Yeah. I used to go up to the poor farm, and Mr. Nolan up there, the same thing, he used to hire us to do stuff around the poor farm, Kids would go up and he'd pay us so much money there, and he'd give you a ride back down to them. It was just a different time and a good time. It was,
So tell me about, take me through in the front door of Joe's Country Store.
oh boy.
See, because I got pictures of the outside and I've heard things about, but I've never.
Well, if you went in the door, the cashier, the counter was there, and his wife. The people that owned it when I was there were Joe and Marion Shagnon, I believe it is. Yes, and I believe they lived in St. Albans. They ran that store, and then Peter Purley took it over later on. When I was a kid, growing up there, you'd go in the front, and the counter, cash register was here, and you walk straight down. To the end was the meat counter at the bottom, and then there was maybe 3 aisles, canned goods and all other stuff, and coolers, and people would go there that worked at the mill, and it was started there, I believe it was started there as a mill store. And even when I was growing up, people would go there, and if they had a tough week, he'd write down what they owed, and when they got paid the following week, they'd go in and cash their check there, and he'd take what they owed. And it was done routinely. It wasn't, you had a box there with all the people, and you charge if you needed to charge food, you wouldn't go without eating, Joe and Marion, to make sure you eat, but just when you got your paycheck on Friday or whatever day it was, they'd go up to the mill, and up from the mill and up to the store, and pay some on their grocery bill. It was just a way of life there.
It was a mill town.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mill formed a lot of the economy and the culture of
Oh
the
yes,
mill. Oh, yeah.
absolutely. In front of the houses on High Street, we had a lot out there. We played baseball out there. Well, we got in trouble with one of the neighbors there. No names need to be mentioned, but we hit the ball on her lawn, and she had a fit about it. So the mothers on that street decided to go to the mill and ask them to build us a ball field. Well, I'll be damned if they didn't do it. They came up with bulldozers, they flattened that. If you look there today, you'll see it's all flat out in there, and they put a backstop up and a pitcher's mound, and we had our own ball field there. And there, in the summertime, 9 o'clock in the morning, there'd be 20, 25 kids out there from all over the town. The Little League field was up by Art Lafley's store, right where the elementary school is now.
Right.
But all the kids would come here and congregate. We'd play baseball all day long here, and we had a backstop. The only problem we had is if you found it over the backstop. Down the back there off that street, there was 3 houses that had open sewage running down to the Missisquoi River there, and 3 on the other. So if you fouled it off and went down in there, you had to be very careful sometimes where you went. I think about it now, there was a pipe coming out of the ground, a huge pipe like that. Raw sewage running down, run right into the Missisquoi River,
Those days are gone, thank God.
What's that?
Said those days are gone,
Well,
thank
thank
God.
God, yes, but over years, that's how that all, there's a lot of stuff about that town that they got away with, but I'm sure every town in the country did that type of stuff. It wasn't that they were any different than anyone else. But in a nutshell, if you stop and think about growing up there, and the people you met, and later on in life, what you used from there, pretty fortunate, that's the way I feel about it, pretty fortunate.
So, how many kids?
3.
3?
Yep, 2 boys and a girl, and I will say this, I say it every time, we took a boy in at 10 from a broken home, and we raised him. So we had 3 boys, and a girl, and we had 4 exchange students, 1 every year. Oh, starting from when the oldest Chad, right there, they went to high school with the kids in Unison.
Right.
We had 1 a year for 4 years, I think it was. I don't think we skipped any years in there, did we? No. Had them from Holland, one from Holland, one from Germany, France. Where? Oh, Wales, yeah, and then we took a girl in from Sweden that didn't have very good luck at one of the fought the homes there. So there's some stories to go with that, but that's not about Sheldon, that's,
That's about you. You're Sheldon.
there's some stories
It
there.
relates though, because I mean,
Oh,
we
boy.
had a Thai student for a year, and you know, it's
They-
like you don't forget those things.
Oh, God, and you know, we still communicate with most of them. One of them we haven't heard from for quite a while, I don't, you know, the others actually have come back to visit and stay with us, you know, which is nice, with their wives. And now they're, of course, they're married with children. And one of them, we don't know where he is. Hopefully he's okay. But he was a boy from Germany, and he was quite different than the rest. But we got along all right. There was a few times that, there was a time when he told my wife, I'll never forget this. I was in the living room reading the paper back there. Then, you know, you used to get the paper delivered, right? She was in the kitchen. And he said something to her. She said something, and he said, in my country, women cook and clean. And their opinion means nothing. Well, before she could say it, I was up there. He was a 16-year-old boy. We had a little discussion. Yeah. And he ended up going to his room, and she said to me, you can't do that. I said, yeah, I will do that. I'm not going to, that's not going to happen in this house. So he ended up, I went to his room after about an hour, and he was sitting there crying. Well, he became my best friend while he was here. I could not move. That kid was, and he was so, at the time my dad was in a wheelchair, and they were still at Fairfield Pond out of camp, and he couldn't get in and out, so we had to build a ramp. A pretty lengthy ramp. I don't know if you ever went. Well, I couldn't, I got all the specs, you know, you just can't build a ramp for a wheelchair. I came home one day, and that 16-year-old boy had sketched that all out with what degree cuts and everything for that. 40, was it 40 feet maybe? 40-foot maybe? Platforms. And he helped me build that thing. And so he was a sharp kid. He just had a different opinion on how
Different culture, that's all.
culture.
Yeah.
But they were all good. The kids all enjoyed having them, you know, with us, and they stayed a year. And the one from Holland, when he left, the whole family cried their eyes out when he went home.
Yeah.
You know, he got so attached to him, Victor, and he you know, and Ingo, the boy from Germany, we left, we were sad, but it was time. It was time for him to go back to his parents. And his parents came here and had dinner with us. And, yeah, there was, we did it, and we did it because we enjoyed it. And
Yeah, so the culture that we know as Sheldon has the ability to create the kind of world citizens that look at other parts of the world and read it
yeah,
in ways that, you know, perhaps other places might not. Not that I'm prejudiced.
well,
I'm not even a native, but I do know that, you know, the country culture has a way of creating a completely different
absolutely,
outlook
it does.
as you've experienced.
You know, it's
What was I'm gonna make you think a little bit now, okay, because you're only gonna get one choice. And it can't be meeting Sandy.
okay.
It can't be that,
All right,
okay? Although that's probably the #1 event for you.
that was my safe bet.
Between the ages of 15 and 20,
Yeah.
what's the #1 most memorable event in your life?
Oh. My firstborn child.
Your firstborn child, whose name is?
Child.
Okay.
Now, we were married at 18. We were just kids ourselves, so, you know, he was born.
And what's remarkable about that?
What is?
Yeah. How did that what effect did that have on Sheldon?
Oh,
Kid.
God. Well, my parents were still living in Sheldon Springs on High Street when Chai was born. And I think the impact it had on them was, thumbs up. It was a lift. My parents were so proud. So, in turn, it was a big thing for us. And again, they took that Sheldon back, bringing up. They got a new child in the family, and the arms are around it, and anything you brought in. And so, I believe that just reiterated everything from the past growing up. Yeah. It's every one of the children like yours, they're all special, and you enjoyed them all. But down there seemed to be, like I said, you were 18 years old, you got out of school in June, and got married in December, so it was, we were pretty much children ourselves, really. But,
Tell us how you got involved in music.
oh boy. Well, back in that time frame, of course, there was a lot of the Beatles and all. So the school had a music teacher. She was from Franklin, Mrs. Toof, and she got the kids in the school down there to get involved in. We had music classes, and so we did that. Of course, to get their attention, which I didn't realize at the time she was doing, she would not just, the old piano music and stuff. She'd say, well, let's work on some of this. And she got us involved in listening to modern music at that time. So a bunch of us in there, other than playing baseball and raising havoc, when we could, and raising hell, we were around the town, but not hurt anybody. We decided that we were going to get a group together because that was the popular thing. So she taught. I learned to play keyboard, and I took a few lessons from Mrs. Basha in Enosburg because my parents, supportive as they were, said, all right, if you're going to do this, you're going to go take it. So I did, and then I converted the keyboard over to the guitar, and I played with, I don't know if you know of the Nobby Reed project, Norbert Reed. Him and Tom Kimball from Sheldon here, and Norbert Reed's family. Otis Reed owned a farm right up here on the corner here. That farm sits up on top of the hill there. He grew up there. So there was Dave Fortin, another mill, his father worked at the mill. He played the drums, and we started playing. And we ended up, the band we formed at 15, 16 years old was called the Endless Tide.
Endless Ties?
Endless Tide.
Okay, Endless Tide.
And at that time, the Sheldon, boy, this brings back some there. The Sheldon Town Hall was functioning, was there. And they would let us rent it for Saturday nights, and we'd put posters out, and Endless Tide playing from, 7 to 11, come one, come all to the Sheldon Town Hall. And I remember writing these signs out, posters, and we put them. So we played rock and roll music there, and we had to hire a sheriff, and he would come, and then people would come. We have 75 to 100 people on a Friday or Saturday night just playing. And all that was started from grade school. We just got into it, and of course at that time, that type of music was really, that was the time. And, like Tom Kimball played I don't know if you remember Norm Kimball lived over here.
Yep.
Sheldon Creek, right over here, him and his wife, Norm. Margaret, yes, daughter. And he was a very good keyboard player. He ended up being very good. Of course, the Nobby Reed project is popular all over the U.S. He's he's a blues guitarist, and he's without a doubt probably one of the finest in the world. And he came from Little Sheldon here. You know, he's fantastic, that guy. He's my age. So I did that, and then when I got married, I had a chance to play after that with, after we got married, he and I'd pick up a guitar and play with Raymond Parent and the Ramblers, they call them. They were a country. You remember them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to play some of that too.
I got here in the 70s, just in time, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I stopped playing when the children came, you know, kids and everything. When I was working, and I just played around. I had a guitar I left around the house there, and every once in a while I play it. And when I retired, I started playing again, and I said, I told her, I'm going to go back to doing this. It's something I've missed for 35 years.
And you became the what?
The what?
What's the name of that group?
The Old Man Garage Band.
There you go.
Yes.
We've heard you before, a couple times they've heard.
Yeah, we started getting together just to play music in my garage. And somebody heard us and asked us if we could play at a 50th class reunion up at
Brookside.
Brookside, yeah, thank you. And so we did, and we only had 16 songs. So we played a few over, you know, and we made some last a little longer. And we did, I said to my second boy, Bradley, there, I said, I don't know, I said, we guess we gotta have a name. We were just playing just once a week to play music. He said, well, you're all old men when you're playing out of the garage. Why don't you call yourself the Old Man Garage Band? So that's how that, it was, and we ended up, we started with 5, and we ended up, well, we had 9, and one of them didn't play this year because of the COVID. He's decided to stay away from it. But that's all right, he'll be back, I think.
So how many of those gentlemen of the Old Man Garage Band are former associates of yours?
Oh, boy. I don't think any of them. They were people I met.
People you met along the way?
I met through life, and I knew they played music, and, you know, to say I grew up with any of them would be, no.
Stretch of imagination, Mark.
What's that?
Just stretching the truth, right?
Yeah, I
I'd
didn't.
be curious though, because there are people who were playing around in the 70s, like, you know,
Yeah.
as 16, 17-year-olds who are still playing together.
Well, those guys, like the drummer, Gary Jacobs, played in a band called the Mustangs during high school. And Gary is 5 years older than I am. And of course, Vietnam was there, and he was off to Vietnam, but he played in Alan Granshaw. He played in the Mustangs with them, and then Leonard LaRose from Williamsburg, he was in that group, and then he went on and played professionally. Traveled up and down the East Coast with a band called the Volcanoes. And so then, of course, Jim Weed plays with us, and Jimmy's been in music forever. He's as fine a musician as you'll find. You know, he's very good at what he does. And so when those guys, we got, that's the original group. And then this, the guy, Todd, before us there, I met him through golfing, and I was playing, and he said, well, I started playing, and I said, well, come to my house. So that's how we started, just the two of us. We once a week get together and make some noise. And Phil Lovelette, he was a friend of one of the guys and played harmonica, so he plays harmonica and sax, you know, so he came in and joined us, and we did it. Like this summer, we had 16 bookings, and they all got canceled because of COVID.
Yep.
Hopefully next year those come back. We played at an anniversary party this year outdoors, and then part of us played at 2 different graduation and a memorial type thing for, one of them was for Lynn Woods down at the lake there. So 3 of us went down and played for a couple, 2-3 hours. But the band itself, we meet every week still, and we jam.
And you're scheduled to play at Old Home Days next year?
Yes, we will be.
Sheldon
Yes.
Old Home Days?
Yes, we will do that.
Back where you played before.
Yes, you know where we used to practice? When we were kids first started, we practiced in the hay barn Otis Reed's farm up here, with Norbert Reed and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We, and I'll never forget, Norbert had a Silvertone guitar with an amp built in the box. And I was playing keyboard then, and I had a little organ. I think the fan on the organ was louder than the music, okay? And the drummer at that time didn't have any drums, so he made up drums out of tin cans and cut the sides so they had different sounds. And it was all makeshift, and we were, oh God, 7th grade maybe or something, and then as it went on, we work a little bit, earn some money, we buy a piece of equipment, and then we started right up there, and I just thought of it, right above the barn there in Haybarn, we had a place set on the corner.
So it's safe to say that that band came out of Sheldon.
Oh, it was a Sheldon band, yes, it was. It was, some of the guys that played it, they're like Norm Kimball, and Ralph Fortin, his son played drums, and Tommy played the keyboard. We came in, and I went to playing bass guitar. And then they had the farm up here, and that's where Norbert, and then Larry Wells sang for us for a while. They lived right up the end of the street here. I think his father just passed away, Kenneth Wells. They lived right on the corner up here. And he sang for us for a while. And, I don't know, it was a lot of fun. Played there, we used to play over to Franklin Town Hall. And then towards the end we played at the Shed and so on, Fantasia. As we got a little older, 15, 16 years old, we had a manager from Enosburg, a guy by the name of George Benoit. Remember George Benoit? He managed us. We had a band, because Ralph DeMar sponsored us. Bought us all the PA system and stuff, and we had to play once a month at his, the Mermaid Room to pay him back.
Right.
And the band and all the equipment, Ralph put the bill on. And we paid him back by playing there, and this guy, George Benoit, would get all our bookings, and even then, we did like Fairfax high school dances, Enosburg dances, in schools we used to have them, so.
Now,
That's good.
Excuse me. Speaking of the old days, you told me that you had visited this country store
Oh,
back when maybe Arthur Murray was the owner?
well, Rod Murray, I think his name, or maybe, was it Rod Murray, Arthur Murray, I can't remember.
I think it was Bart. I think it was his name.
Yeah, we, of course, we hung around here a lot. And we come down, and the guy that used to run behind the cash register was an older man. And I think his nickname was Corky, but I think his name was Clarence. Big fellow, used to be right there. That's where we used to come in here a lot. Kids, would come in. Of course, we got in a little trouble here, as I told you one time, and I don't know if I should mention that. I might go to jail over this. Huh? What do you think?
We'll
Go
keep
for it.
Go for it! We used to come in, and a couple of us would talk to Corky. Of course, we were 15, 16 years old. And we talked to him about the local gals in the area. And Corky would get all kind of excited, and he'd start talking like, have you seen so-and-so? The two of us would go, the cooler was right there.
Yep.
And that window was open, we'd go grab a 6-pack of beer or a couple of 6-packs, throw it down out the window, the guy would catch it at the bottom, run like hell for under the bridge.
Yep.
And we'd go sit down here and drink that beer, well, we got caught. So we had to come back up and see the owner. He called my father, or called through somebody else, but I ended up getting Victor LaRose to pretend he was my father. Well, that didn't work, because I didn't want to tell my father, so Vic said, I'll do it for you. So he came up, and it ended up, my father found it in the place, because there was telephones back then, and they made a few phone calls. And so we had to pay the man for the alcohol that we had stolen out of there, and then we had a visit with the local sheriff in the area about what could happen if you do that stuff. And then he sent us home to have our parents take care of us, and I may have been 15 or 16 years old, but it wasn't very pleasant for a while.
Could have been better sitting down in the county jail for 2 days,
Oh,
right?
boy. And
Wouldn't have
that's-
been as much, right? No.
Oh, that was a sad state, you know, when we came in. I wish I could have seen a picture of that because I know my mouth. I was so embarrassed. And why we did that, who the hell knows why we did that?
Just so we can relate, when I was 15, I worked in a store with a great big back door, garage door, and all the beer was out there. I had lots of friends.
Oh yes, I'm sure you did.
You know the rest of the story, right? Because you lived it. Typical of the times, you know, it was mischief.
Jeez. And you didn't think anything of it. Poor guy's trying to make a living. You're stealing his product. He's trying to sell. Today you know that, but back then you didn't think about that stuff. You thought, wow. And down under the bridge down there, the drain pipes had come out. I don't know. I should go down there and see those big rocks and stick the beer bottles in the drain pipe. You know, we got done with them. Those drain pipes are full of beer bottles and put in there. I'm sure that people working in the town had to go down there and clear all that crap out of there. You know, you just don't think of that stuff. It's, but you know, another thing, when we got married, we moved to Richwood because that's where I worked, and we lived in a third-story apartment, and we didn't have a vehicle, so we'd walk to the store there down the hill. And I know it has nothing to do with Sheldon, but it does, because your character that you built while you were here, you know, brought you, and you carried that with you. So we used to go to the store. We didn't have much money to buy groceries. We'd walk down. We had, in the wintertime, we had a sled. In the summertime, we had a wagon. We put Chad in, a newborn, and we carried him down. And we used to have, what was it, $10 or $12 a week for groceries. And I think of this story a lot when I see people, you know, well, I just want to see things happen, but we go down and I keep track of how much everything was. And I'd say, you're going to put that back. We don't have enough money this week, we'll get it next week. Well, the guy that owned the store, what was his name? Doesn't matter, but he saw that and he said to me, you have your wife take that. He said, you come down here after work. And he said, I'll have some stuff for you to do. So I used to go there. No, it wasn't Martell's, that was right by the high school. But anyways, I'd go down there and I'd cut boxes, pile them up, and he'd keep track of it. So if I had something that we needed, he'd put it on a thing, and I'd work off the hours cutting boxes. So you know, I mean, I don't know. I would hope there's stuff like that going on today, but I don't ever hear about it. But I would hope there would be things like that, because he said, well, you know. But that in itself was, I believe, is a character build-up from how you were brought up and how you. I believe that's the. Let me just shut this off a minute. I believe that's where that all came from. Is you know, nobody in those days, and I know. You think about a mill town, and you know, when I went to BFA, by the way, all us guys, when we went down there, and girls, we were known as mill people. You mill people have to be over here. You mill people. So when they talk about stuff today with racism and segregation, that was in the 60s. And we were considered out-of-town people, and we got treated differently. Until they found out that we knew how to play baseball, we knew how to, Bob Morris knew how to play football, and then things changed a little bit. But until that broke the ice, you know, your academics, I got selected to go to, remember Green Mountain Boys State?
Yep.
Well, I went in my junior year, I got selected to go to Boys State. They didn't want to honor that, because I didn't live in St. Albans. I came from Sheldon Springs. So, you know, times have changed, but they haven't change, that was there then. You just knew how to, you dealt with it, and, you know, I'm gonna say this, and I hope I don't offend anybody, you didn't go crying to your mother because somebody said something to you like that, you took care of it. You knew how to take care of it, you took care of it.
Take care of yourself. So we're on the last 5 minutes. Sandy, is there any truth that you want to bring out from this conversation at the moment, or no?
No, I think he's doing good.
Josie, anything that you wish to add, Vern?
I'm all set.
You're all set. Okay, Phil, it sounds as if you're telling a pretty good story of what it was to grow up in that same period of time that I remember growing up. I wasn't here, but the images are right there,
It's
and
very
even down to the big pipe hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all
Very
there.
nice, just an awful nice environment.
So
If I could turn the clock back and see my grandkids be raised, thumbs up, that would be perfect.
well, I think the only thing we can do is hang in there and keep ourselves turned back to what's important.
Yeah,
I want to thank you a lot for being in.
well, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.